Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. It's the 25th anniversary season of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Hope you had a great Easter with family and friends. We're here tonight talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates, who delivered a little Easter surprise with a sweep of the Marlins. That's our #1 topic on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We'll also get into the Steelers and the addition of Patterson to their special teams after the NFL radically changes their kickoff situation. We'll get into that, as well as the NCAA all tonight. Here's your panel tonight. We have with us Mr. Chris Adamski from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review and Mr. Ray Fittipaldo from the Post-Gazette. And gentlemen, I want to start with your takeaways from this weekend. Now, if you're going to go back in history, there's been one time in 2018 when they started 4-0, didn't pan out. I saw last year everybody got excited for 20-8. I thought that might be legit. And then they went 56-78 after that. What is your takeaway from a 4-0 start, Ray, week one of this season?
Love the bullpen. Love Jared Jones and what he's going to bring. We heard about him, but until you actually see him in a major league game, you don't know. But now he's on the come. But I think the big difference about this team is the lineup. I think this lineup can overcome bad starts as they did today, and they can hit home runs. And I think anytime you could hit 2-run, 3-run home runs to get you back in the game, you're going to have a chance to win.
Yeah, this is a competitive lineup, top to bottom. I think all 9 spots. I think you have reason to believe not everybody's going to hit the ceiling necessarily this year. Maybe they get really lucky and they do. But I mean, Henry Davis at catcher, O'Neal Cruz. I mean, you have really high-end guys there. Brian Hayes looks like a high-end type guy now. If Triolo gives you really good defense and good enough offense as a second baseman, Brian Reynolds, of course. You would just have all up and down the lineup. You have a real competitive. I'm not going to say it's the best lineup in the National League or whatever, but for the first time in probably 5 years, the Pirates can roll somebody out there every day, 1 through 9, and be good. And we know the bullpen was always supposed to be a strength. The Jared Jones things, I think, really that can make everything fit together. That's something that we knew he was a top prospect over the offseason, and you talked about the rotation. I don't think anybody expected him to start opening day or start this on the roster opening day this season. And the fact that not only is here, and it's one start, we don't get ahead of yourselves here, you don't know. But if he is that type of top of the rotation starter with Skeens coming later, that just makes the whole rotation feel a lot more comfortable about it, because you felt like that was a place where there wasn't much depth.
Well, there's no question. I mean, if you can get starters to go 5 or 6 innings, I think that's a plus. And then you get to this bullpen, which is just showing you now that even with David Bednar giving up a home run today, you get them to the 7th inning, you're going to win a lot of games here. And it's interesting to me, Ray, that this week we saw a kid named Ryan with his first Major League win, Jose Hernandez his first Major League save, and then today Hunter Strant with his first Major League save. These guys, a lot of them weren't even considered to be on their roster this year, and here they are making saves and taking advantage of situations. But I know it's one weekend. Paul Skeens also pitched, and I'd like to get your take on when you think, based on what we saw yesterday, it's only one start, I know, but he had a perfect 3 innings, 5 strikeouts, overpowering people. When will he be here?
I'm going to say May. I think they're going to be committed to keeping him down there about a month or so. So I would say first or second week of May. And it's nice to have these power arms in the system. I mean, you look at Jared Jones touching 98, 99 yesterday. The nice thing about him, though, was he wasn't afraid to throw his changeup or his slider to set up that fastball. So if Skeens can do the same thing, and I know Skeens is on a different level. He's throwing 101, 100. But when you have complementary stuff to go along with that power fastball, that makes you a really dangerous rotation.
And he looks confident at age 22, Chris.
Yeah. Well, and that's what both those guys yesterday, different. One was in AAA, of course, one in the majors. The symmetry of that, the Pirates, I don't think they're on purpose or not, they have Skeens and Jones go the same day. They both have that kind of alpha male demeanor. And we were talking on the sports call last night with Josh. This team is kind of fun to watch. I mean, I know Skeens was in AAA, but those starters are fun to watch. I mean, O'Neal Cruz is a must-watch every at-bat. Brian Hayes, maybe the best third baseman of his generation. Henry Davis, another type of guy, the same type of kind of alpha type of guy you want to be. Yeah, if Skeens, he's 3 innings now. I mean, obviously they have a plan. Build him up and probably preserve some innings so he can pitch all the way through. Something we've seen. The Scott Boras type guys in the past, these high draft picks, they shut them down. Steven Strasburg, the 1 year didn't pitch in the playoffs. So I'm getting way ahead of ourselves thinking Pirates in the playoffs. But I just mean, maybe see a couple 3 inning starts, 4 inning starts, but that sets up perfectly into May then when he would be able to get called up. And and everybody was down on the Bailey Folder in the rotation. And today was the one blemish on the weekend for the Pirates of the Bailey Folder.
But I don't think he's going to end up being their fifth starter.
That's what I mean.
They have Josh Fleming, who I thought was a
true,
better option, but they didn't go to him for some reason. Here's the thing about the Pirates this weekend. They showed you long ball and small ball.
Yeah.
And right today we saw the fact that they did both over the weekend. And today, 2 bunts in the 10th inning. They ended up winning a game on a bunt, and a walk, which goes to show you. My question to you would be, do you like this 10th inning rule still where they put a guy on second base? Because at first I understood it. I thought it was okay. Now I think it's rather quirky, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different. I'm going to tell you, I thought when they kept delay in the game there, I'm thinking, why don't you pinch hit for him there? But he actually took a pitch and they laid down a perfect safety squeeze there.
And it helps to have Cruz running, too.
Absolutely. I mean, just a beautiful athletic play by Cruz at the plate there. But, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different. I mean, there's all kinds of different minor league rules as you go out throughout single A, double A. They all have different extra inning rules. But, they did want to speed up the game. They're doing that with the pitch clock, and I think they want to do that with the extra innings, too.
I thought from the beginning they should have at least played one extra inning of normal baseball at least. And maybe that will happen. Kind of like hockey, they had the shootouts, and they've tried to diminish shootouts by having the 3-on-3 overtime to have fewer shootouts. Everybody liked it at first, and I think maybe after a couple of years, especially now, because the extra inning rule was changed before they did the pitch clock, and now games are shorter anyway. So maybe play 1 inning of normal baseball or 2 innings or something like that before. And if they really want to cut down, I always thought those were fun, the 18-inning games, but every once in a while, I guess.
Except the one in Atlanta where the umpire blew the call to play. But yeah, you're right.
When I had to work them, I didn't like them as much as when I maybe watched them on TV when you're sitting there. But yeah, so maybe we'll see that down the road, maybe 11 innings or so. But the Pirates, there's a lot to like this week. I think the Marlins are not very good. And we saw last year being 20-8, 4-0 is nothing about 28. But I think there's a lot to like this weekend about the Pirates.
But the Marlins did get to the playoffs. I know they've lost some players to that team, but whatever. They're 4-0, and you should enjoy this as long as it lasts. Why not? There's not much else to talk about because later in the program we're going to talk about the Penguins, who looks like they're going to miss the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row. When we come back, however, we're going to talk about new NFL rules and how they will impact the Steelers. That's next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We're talking NFL owners' meetings, which wrapped up in Orlando, Florida, and there was one significant rule change. Chris Adamski, it's about kickoffs. They have adopted something that was with the XFL, and it's pretty radical. It's pretty radical when you think about it for the NFL, but they decided to do it to try to encourage more returns. Do you like this? The fact that the kicker kicks, his teammates get to line up on the other team's 40, nobody moves. It's almost like they're in quicksand until the ball. Landing zone, all these different things. Is it good or bad for football?
It's going to look really goofy, and part of me, the traditionalist, doesn't like it. Initially, I was against it, but we all have to accept that it was never going to come back to be normal kickoffs, right? The way we grew up and the way you think, then we're going to move the kickoff back and make it. So the fact that we'll get a lot more returns, it's certainly better than it was last year where there was hardly any. The Super Bowl had no returns. That was ridiculous. So I'm curious to see. It'll be fun, kind of neat to see how the special teams coaches, what Danny Smith cooks up, and what the better special teams coaches, both in coverage and in returns. We'll see. Maybe it more simulates a play from scrimmage. Right. Maybe not totally. So, and you might see more star players that they've talked about. Tyreek Hill returning kickoffs, things like that. Now the Steelers have a kickoff return specialist. And the thing is, it's not like a traditional kickoff return, but Cordell Patterson has also been a very good player to carry out of the backfield too. So even if it is,
but he is 33, right? That's the only thing.
And listen, Danny Smith was on the competition committee that saw that rule through. So the fact that they signed Patterson, a day or two after that rule was passed, I think that tells you Danny thinks the game is going to change, and it's important to have a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type returner out there for you. So I think, I think it's going to be less straight ahead speed and more shiftiness, for your returner. And a guy like Patterson who can run through tackles is going to be important too. So it does change the dynamics of who you're going to put out there to tackle these guys too. So I think there's a lot of unknowns about it, but I think it'll be fun for
fans. And it'll be a couple years for everybody to adjust. Like you said, even the personnel.
It's a 1-year trial, though, right? That's what you're going to see. Let's talk about one rule that I thought they would adopt either last year, this year, whenever. Instead of an onside kick, this 4th and 25 thing, since they're taking stuff from other leagues, right? Why not that? Because it's an actual football play instead of trying something that very seldom works.
Yeah, see, the 4th and 25 thing, are you going to keep the flags in your pocket if there's pass interference? Because you see a lot of jump balls and, you'll see calls go for the offense and against the defense in that situation. That's the only thing I worry about, like in a 4th and long type
Like a
of
Hail
play.
Mary, like they never call it. You can get away with
Or
anything.
roughing the passer. You imagine that somebody just gets through and then you get possession that way.
So it's like what's the analytics of it? Why 4th and 25? Why not 4th and 20? Why did they come? 4th and 25 seems to me like it's like a 1 in 100 type chance to convert.
I think they've had one of those leagues. Again, I'm all confused. The spring leagues. This is more 4th and 15, I think, or something. Depending what they get. Again, part of me says, come on, this is gimmicky. But again, the onside kick as it stands now, it was never getting recovered. And now that you have to declare it, there's no more surprise onside kicks. You might as well just do this play at this point because it's already, you have to declare it anyway. So
look, a couple of Super Bowls were changed by onside kicks. The Saints, Colts, and the Steelers almost. I mean, that turned that game into a game.
Momentum,
they didn't win, but so a part of history is gone by the wayside.
Right. Now we're getting closer to the NFL draft here, gentlemen. You guys specialize in this. There are going to be people coming over. One of them is Michael Penix Jr. Apparently he's in for a meeting. The Steelers are going to talk to him. They don't really get a chance to see him. Ray, I want to get your take on what they have to do they're going to draft a quarterback, clearly. So I don't expect it early in the draft. Would there ever be a scenario where they can move up in the 2nd, 3rd round to do something like that if they feel the need?
I don't with the acquisition of Justin Fields, I don't see them drafting one on the first 2 days of the draft. I could see something happen on day 3. The only wild card is, when Andy Weidel was in Philadelphia, he drafted Jalen Hurts in the middle of the 2nd round. I think pick number 54. They have pick number 51. So if they were really in love with a guy like Penix, they think he could maybe, be their future, maybe that could happen. But I think by getting Fields, a developmental guy, I think that's the guy they're probably going to
You imagine that you think there's a drama or a lot of focus to be on training camp right now with the two guys. They got to imagine having a highly drafted rookie like that too, a high profile in the national title game.
Preseason games will be very interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
That makes everything. People always say they want to watch those games. You want to watch that.
A lot of people watching that, for sure. Yeah, it seems like they're painting themselves in a corner now where they need a center. Probably in the draft, almost no matter what at this point. They still need a corner. There's a lot of needs.
Receiver.
Receiver. Yes, of course. You need that for sure almost in the draft. So it's kind of hard to think that they'll use a luxury pick on a quarterback, right? But if you're really in love with the guy, you think about it. The two quarterbacks. As much as we're going to talk about these quarterbacks, they're both essentially on 1-year deals.
Right.
They're not committed beyond this year. So if you fall in love with a Penix and the old first round grade thing with Mason Rudolph, but if he is a first round grade and he's there late in the 2nd round, it's almost organizational malpractice not to take him, right, at that point. So, we'll see how it works.
They have a lot of needs. There's no question about that. And we're getting closer to that NFL draft that will be coming up at the end of the month. And the Steelers, by the way, have put in their bid to get one in 2026 or 2027. Looks like that will happen, at least I hope so anyway. It'd be great for Pittsburgh and a lot of money coming into town. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Final Four is now set. And if you don't have a big man, chances are you're not going to get a chance to be there. These guys are big. We'll talk about the matchups next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Since we last convened here, the ACC has stepped up. They had 3 teams in the Elite 8, and now they have 1 left, and that's going to be in the Final Four. And NC State, they buck the odds as an 11th seed. They will take on Purdue. And the one thing I found, gentlemen, about this is if you're one of these teams in the Final Four, you have a big guy. They talk about guard play, which is important in shooting. But when you see a guy like Zach Edey pouring 40 points today for Purdue, it's hard to guard him. This matchup with NC State, though, you have him versus DJ Burns Jr., who's become this rock star of a big man. His footwork is better, I think, than Edey. How do you see these matchups, working out here this coming weekend?
It is fat because the evolution in the game, these kind of, they're not true back to the basket like they were 30 years ago or so when I was a kid, but it's different. As a guy who was 6'5" in high school, which isn't a big man in college, that's the way they taught me how to play. Right? Yeah. Nowadays, I see my daughter play. Nobody posted up. But see, at NC State, having that story start in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, it's 40 years now since the 41 years since the Jimmy V team.
Jimmy
V,
right.
and this is a bigger Cinderella than that. And they've won 10 in a row now that they all must wins to keep going. They won the ACC.
And they almost didn't even get in. If they don't win the ACC tournament, they're not getting an invite.
Oh yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Pitt might have been the team.
And Pitt beat them twice.
Right.
There's so many storylines around NC State.
Well, I was flipping back and forth between Pirates and that Purdue game today, and the impressive thing about Edey, he took that game over late, and he's so good at the foul line. A guy who's 7'4", for him to have that kind of touch at the foul line, you can't just put him on the line and do a hack-a-shack on him because he's going to convert more of these than he's going to miss. So he's a dominant player. That's going to be a fun matchup next week.
There's no question. The other one, I don't know what it's going to be like because Alabama's a 4 seed, and they're good. There's no question that they have a guy named Grant Nelson, another big guy who's 6'11". But UConn just looks like they got guards that are playing out of their minds, and they're better than last year when they won. It's hard for me to see a team repeat, but this team is in position to do that. How does Alabama beat them?
I mean, UConn is like a buzzsaw, right? Are they? It's just like, it's just they've been just 2 years in a row now too. Yeah. I mean, they've been even in a competitive game. They're 10 in a row now in the tournament last year and this year, and they're just blowing people. A 30-0 run.
How about that?
I mean, you felt like they were the best team. But in this tournament, I mean, 11 seed making their team that shouldn't. And to see UConn be the number one seed and just they look invincible right now.
The way this tournament is so unpredictable, to have a team like that as a prohibitive favorite, to get there and to probably win it again. I mean, we'll see what happens next weekend. But I cannot remember a team in recent history that was built as such that played us.
I think 11-point favorites in the Final Four, and that's against and different. They're playing the 11 seed. They're playing a Alabama team.
Alabama's very good SEC team.
Yeah, and Alabama's one of those teams this year. It's funny, they were kind of inconsistent this year in the regular season. For the last few years, I thought Alabama was a good sleeper team. This is the year I kind of gave up on them, and here they are.
I have 1 minute left for this, Ray, and I want to ask you guys this question. Again, you can talk about all the ways they figure out who gets into this tournament. Automatic bids will mess somebody else up. Right. At least Pitt may have been one of those victims of this one. Even Duquesne could have hurt Pitt. But what about playing well as the season rolls on? In the day of transfers, you can't have November games mean as much as ones in February, March.
It's a no-brainer. You look at the NFL playoffs. The Steelers back in 2005, they get hot. Cinderella story, become the first 6 seed ever. You want to see those stories in the NCAA too, and I think Pitt was robbed this year, but I think you see other teams robbed in the past too.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that they can't. That's literally part of in the criteria, you can't count a game more in March than you do in November. That's crazy to me. I mean, I'm a full believer in all sports, but now in this age of college basketball, football definitely has been like that. You see teams in December are totally different than they are in September. And I think in college basketball now, you're right, with the transfer, with the roster turnover and like that, to believe that you can't take that, they're written down, they're not supposed to take that into account, how you're playing the last 10 games or last month or whatever it is. It just blows my mind.
Right. It's subjective to begin with, so what's the point? I mean, just if you're playing
and that's
well.
What I think. The net is fine. Either follow the net to a T and just say, we're taking subjectivity out of it. I don't agree with that, but if you're doing this hybrid where you're following the net but not, it just, to me, but.
Yeah, I think bottom line is Pitt did get jobbed. I think the final analysis is they should have been in this tournament. Virginia is the one that shouldn't have been in, and they proved that they weren't ready for it anyway. They only scored like 42 points. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Penguins. They lost in Columbus. Their season is probably going to end before it ever gets to the playoffs. They're so far down, they can't dig out. What do they do in the offseason? How much emphasis and responsibility does Kyle Dubas have to turn this thing around quickly? Next. 25th anniversary of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. So during our time here, we saw this. You might remember this grand slam by Colin Moran against the Twins. That was the last time the Pirates started 4-0 to start a season here. They did it at PNC Park on April the 2nd was this game. So now the Pirates have a chance to go 5-0. They will be in D.C. tomorrow for a game. But we'll talk here about the Penguins because they're not going to be in any significant games moving forward. Their season's going to end. So, Ray, how does Kyle Dubas manage a team that has so many no-trade clauses, high-end salaries, and try to get younger, try to get faster? Yeah. When you can't really do a whole bunch, how does he do it? And
you got bad contracts, too. You got Graves. People say Jari has played well this year. It's one thing to have a good save percentage or goals against average, but does he make the quality saves when you need them, when you're, ahead by 2 goals in the third period? So to answer your question, Bob, I don't know how they do it. I mean, he better have something up his sleeve. You got to get faster. You got to get younger, but they don't have much room under the cap.
And the thing is like really, I mean, he redid the bottom 6 this year, pretty much did the entire new bottom 6 this year in his first offseason, which is all you could do, and it's commendable because the bottom 6 last year was awful, and you couldn't really change the top 6.
So much better this year, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. And that's sort of the nature of a bottom six, is the reason why they're not top six. Anybody you bring in essentially is probably. So I don't know. You're seeing some of these younger guys play now, whether it be a Pusanen and DOCs, but O'Connor's been playing a lot this year, and Poulin's up now. And I guess you're going to have to try some of those guys, but there isn't too much. And obviously Crosby's going to be here, Letang's going to be here. Malkin's really kind of the problem now. If he's your second line center, which he almost has to be by contract and by emeritus.
Can you ask him if he wants to move? Can that happen? It should happen. He could say no. That's at least you're right.
Maybe the Penguins can fly his parents over earlier in the season next year. I don't know. He played well when his parents were here. I mean, listen, he's banged up a little bit. Maybe he'll be better next year, but I don't know how much better.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They don't have many options here. We'll see. Kyle Dubas knew this coming in, and he also knew exactly what this ownership wanted. They need to star players because they're still an attraction, and people will go out and spend money. But generally speaking, they need some overhaul. We'll see what they do. Anyway, becoming a champion is hard. We just described that with the Penguins. They've done it. Now to do it again is tough. But scoring slam dunk savings at #1 Cochran Ford, that's really easy. There are 4 Ford stores give you a big assist in every way. Choose from a stacked lineup of new vehicles. Get game-winning offers and enjoy the star treatment with their clearly better car buying experience. Score your slam dunk savings now at any of the 4 #1 Cochran Ford stores, or you can do it online at Cochran.com. It's been fun. We are done. Pirates are going to be in D.C. and then the home opener on Friday here at PNC Park. Ray Fittipaldo, thank you very much for coming in. Chris Adamski, appreciate it. Read these guys in their respective newspapers. Do you call them newspapers anymore?
Websites.
Websites, whatever. I'm so old school. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next Sunday night right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.